presentation is formally directed towards the course of democratization that took place beginning in the 1980s through the 1990s and still ongoing in 5 different cases that I looked at. So the analysis of democratization as a form of political transformation have noted the rise and fall of democracies over time. And I think we are all aware of the seminal work that had been done by Samuel Huntington on third wave democracies in the late 20th century. He has these democracies during the third wave, some of them have fallen and they have reversed themselves, but others are ongoing, others are in a period, in a state of status quo. This third wave or fourth wave, as Larry Diamond would argue, the fourth wave succeeded the democratic end. No doubt the Arab Spring and its implications for political transformation have excited political change analysts and activists alike. Never mind if the contours of a post-Arab Spring political regime remains unclear. East Asia has undergone its own share of political transformation in terms of shifts from authoritarianism to varying types of democratic regimes since the 1980s, as I already noted. South Korea and Taiwan in Northeast Asia, the Philippines, Thailand, and Indonesia in Southeast Asia democratized their systems during the late 1980s, a process that continued into the 1990s and even today. In South Korea and Taiwan, Indonesia, democratization appears to have gone further ahead than in the Philippines and Thailand. Malaysia is currently undergoing its own political transformation towards greater political liberalization, while Singapore's quality of governance has withstood the hurdles of external economic shocks and domestic socio-economic change. My presentation will focus first on a brief history of East Asian democratization in the 1980s and 1990s, followed by a discussion of recent developments in various parts of East Asia, and then we'll go into the ongoing challenges that are faced by these countries that are changing. I will add a little my take on what's going on in China, but not all of China, but only specific areas that I have some familiarity with before I make my concluding remarks. So political transformation from authoritarianism to democracy occurred in South Korea, Taiwan, in Northeast Asia, the Philippines, Thailand, and Indonesia in Southeast Asia starting from the 1980s. This development occurred in quick succession with each other in the Philippines, South Korea, and Taiwan in the 1980s, followed by Thailand in the early 1990s, and after the Asian financial crisis of 1997 by Indonesia as well. These cases form part of third wave democratization I already alluded to. While every case has unique features, democratization in East Asia might be characterized at a general level as having a number of similar features. The first is that all of these cases experience varying types of authoritarian rule where the military played a key role in politics. Taiwan and the Philippines shared the experience of civilian control over the military. In Taiwan, the army was under the KMT, while in the Philippines, civilian political institutions exercised extensive oversight powers over the military prior to the declaration of martial law and subsequent authoritarian rule in early 1970s. In Thailand, the army ended absolute monarchy in 1932, and since then, until the first elected government in 1988 in Thailand, the army had played a dominant role in Thai politics. The Indonesian Army's Dui Fungsi, or dual function, as an army and a political actor, ensured the old ABRI's, this is ABRI is the Indonesian Army's old, name. Its political role during the new order was ensured by the Dui Fungsi. And in post-democratic or post-democratization Indonesia, that new TNI from 1998 onwards is continuing to exercise a strong political influence in the democratic period, formally dismissing Dui Fungsi as a thing of the past but unable to really live it out. The Indonesia, on the other hand, South Korea's political leaders during the authoritarian and democratic periods have included military officers such as Park Chung-hee, Chun Do-hwan, and Roh Tae-woo. The second important common feature is that these cases underwent varying paces of socio-economic development that facilitated the growth of middle classes, which in turn played important roles in political liberalization. Liberal political thought, as many of us will recall, celebrates the critical role of economic growth and development and the rise of middle classes in political change. East Asian experiences appear to validate this argument. The middle classes there were at the forefront of social movements that initiated political liberalization, such as in Taiwan since the 1980s, the Philippines during People Power I in February 1986, and Thailand during the protest against the appointment of a military officer as Prime Minister in 1992. Thirdly, all 5 cases saw in varying forms and degrees the importance of civil society in the democratization process, whether in Taiwan since the 1980s, the Philippines since the 70s for that matter, or Indonesia since the 1980s. Fourthly, democratization was also influenced and strengthened by political transformation taking place elsewhere in the world, a phenomenon which my colleagues in the discipline of political science will call the snowball effect. When it is good, it's snowball. When it is bad, it's called contagion. Certainly, the political steerings in Central and Eastern Europe against Soviet hegemony, even prior to the fall of the Iron Curtain, and the collapse of authoritarian regimes in Latin America must have exerted a modicum of influence in the political opening of these Asian societies. And finally, all 5 cases face similar challenges grouped within the concept of democratic consolidation and also improving the quality of democracy and governance. I would like to share some of the recent developments that have been happening in my part of the world. And these are going to be centered on recent presidential and parliamentary elections on the one hand, at the same time, signs of democratic consolidation and political reforms in a number of countries, including those that are outside of the 5 cases that I looked at. Elections are usually seen as a very important indicator of a democracy, or sometimes a measure of democratic consolidation. I don't need to go through the academic literature on this. South Korea elected its current president, I think in 2007, and this is seen as another milestone in its march to democracy. Foreign and security policy issues, especially in regard to the nuclearization of the Korean Peninsula and its relations with the major powers, namely China and the United States, continue to challenge the present administration in Seoul. On the other hand, Taiwan elected its first KMT-led government after 2 terms under the Democratic Progressive Party, or DPP, in 2008, enhanced economic and functional relations with Beijing, including the signing of an Economic Cooperation Framework Agreement, or ECFA, remains the KMT's principal bragging right, as the status and identity of Taiwan remains framed under the One China principle. The Philippines elected a new president last year. The performance so far of this new government has suggested to me a possible reversal of democratic political institution building that has been hampered even in the past. There are a number of indicators that could undermine the principle of separation of powers, which underlies our political system, between the 3 organs of governments, namely executive, legislative, and judiciary, and a tendency in the present government towards concentration of budgetary and other powers on the executive branch. Thailand, for its part, elected into office in 2011 the sister of the deposed but popularly elected former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra, totally inexperienced in politics, there are concerns that her older brother Thaksin will be the real power behind our government. To this day, she has refused to declare a state of emergency in flood-ravaged Bangkok. Okay? And there are rumors to the effect that in a recent meeting of the dominant party in Thailand, Thaksin Shinawatra participated in the meeting together with cabinet ministers through teleconferencing. These are rumors. It might be added also that the election does not resolve the deep division in Thai society that has serious implications for its future as well as the fate of Thai democracy. In Malaysia, the recent news that I heard is that the current Prime Minister is seeking the repeal of the Draconian Internal Security Act, among other things. And of course, in Singapore, you have movements towards increasing political liberalization, as I said earlier, in spite of domestic developments as well as external challenges. Okay, common ongoing challenges. I have to be very brief because I saw Lady already trying to hand me something that I dread and all speakers dread. And these are grouped among the following. The development of a shared meaning of democracy among key political actors. We have different versions of democracy. How can we move forward if democracy means different things to key actors? Secondly, the development of a more durable basis for political legitimacy or political authority beyond elections. Thirdly, the development of shared democratic norms and principles, including an agreement on the proper role of each of the governing institutions. Fourthly, the development of credible and functioning institutions for democratic governance. And finally, the development of a responsible citizenry. You cannot have a functioning democracy without a responsible citizenry, and this is something that we commonly share. Now, a word on the transformation taking place in China. We have Chinese specialists here. I don't need to share this with you, but I think there is some interest on our take from Asia of what's going on in China. We know that China has assumed the very important position of the second largest economy in the world, and is probably going to become the largest economy not too long from now. It has acquired its first aircraft carrier, and maybe in 3 to 5 years it will acquire a few more. So there are important security challenges that we are facing in our part of the world as a consequence of the rise of China. But what is interesting to note is that socioeconomic development, rapid growth for several decades, and its ability to use the global financial crisis through the application of stimulus packages to open up the various underdeveloped parts of China, to expand the domestic consumer group in China, has led to the ability on the part of China to address some of the criticisms against its development process. In addition, I want to share with you or call attention to a study that was made by CIPRI last year that talked about the pluralization of the actors in the formulation of foreign and security policy in China. Something that might be celebrated because now there are many more voices that we need to take into account. The call is not being made by a single actor, either in the Communist Party or in the People's Liberation Army. But the critical thing is all of them are committed to the preservation of the core interests of China. So China provides challenges but opportunities for all of us. And it depends on what all of us are going to do individually and collectively in the next 5 years as to whether we're going to see a benign China being a leader not only in East Asia but also in the world. Thank you very much, and sorry, lady.